Okay, so this video is going to be about how I met a Filipina, ignored major red flags, ended up getting married, and ultimately, in the end, destroyed my life. So, first of all, I met her online. She pulled the I'm conservative, I'm a Christian, I've never had a boyfriend, I'm NB, and I can't even be courted. My father is ultra conservative and he doesn't believe in dating before marriage. So, talking, we talked online. She acted extremely hypersensitive to anything that was, quote, sinful, end quote, and stuck to that kind of persona. We've been talking for 4 months, and I continually joked her, come on, send me your boobs, send your boobs. And, just as a joke, but of course I wanted to see them. But I didn't think, a girl like that would ever do it. One day she messaged me and she said, I have a surprise for you. And she sent me pictures of her boobs. Now, this is a red flag because she had already profusely said she would never do something like that because it was against her religion and she would never cross that line. So she crossed the line. And once she crossed the line, by the end of our chats before I came to the Philippines, I had a library of naked pictures of her. So that was, in hindsight, a huge red flag. Her persona did not match her personality. Okay. I was geared up to go to the Philippines, and I was about 1 week away. I'd already sent money for all the apartment, first and last month's rent, furniture, decorations, curtains, etc., etc., etc. I get a message from a random stranger who turned out to be her best friend, who was ultimately stabbing her in the back and telling me that my girlfriend had tattoos, multiple boyfriends, and that she smoked cigarettes and drank too much. Upon confronting her, she first got very mad, acted jealous, said, why are you talking to my friend? Do you like her? What's going on? So I had to explain to her that she contacted me, send screenshots, all this stuff. So she was just deflecting, red flag. And finally, she admitted, yes, she had a tattoo. She sent me a picture of it. I was shocked. She had gotten a tattoo of my name, about 5 inches long and 3 inches wide, directly under another tattoo. So it was essentially 2 tattoos. You might be wondering if she was sending me revealing pics, how I never saw these. Okay, it's not because it was brand new. It's because she would only kind of lift up her shirt and show her front side. Or if she did some backside image, it was in a mirror and she had a shirt on top. So I never saw anything above her, like a bicep area, and never saw her shoulders. And this was up on her shoulder. Red flag, because I hadn't even met her in person yet, and she's already permanently placed my name on her arm. Additional red flag was that my name was in fresh, brand new, dark black ink. And the other portion of the tattoo was in faded out green, red, yellow, blues, flowers, and it just did not match at all. So I called her on that, and she said the tattoo artist ran out of ink and he couldn't use much ink, so it didn't look very crisp or colorful. Now, I have tattoos, and I know that was an older tattoo above with a new tattoo below. So I was approximately a week away from coming here, and I didn't really know how to deal with that. She apologized for not telling me, but she feigned ignorance as far as having 2 tattoos. She said it was all in one, and she told me that I could meet the tattoo artist that did it, and he would explain it to me. So, red flag, red flag. So, fast forward to a week later, I land in Manila, and her family's there. I meet her father, this ultra-conservative person who would never allow her to date, was a chain smoker, and he had alcohol all over his breath. So red flag there. So we go to our apartment. It was about 6 hours away. When we get there, we were exhausted. It was like 5:30 in the morning. We just passed out and didn't do anything other than sleep. Next day, we walked around, got food, had a good day, come home, it's evening time. We went to bed. So we started to get intimate, and she took her shirt off, and lo and behold, she has 2 other tattoos, okay, that she didn't tell me about. And she's like, surprise, and I'm, ready to go do the deed. And I didn't feel like having a confrontation in that moment, but of course it was a huge red flag. And I've got this, really attractive girl sitting in front of me, and I just bypassed the issue, was going to talk to her about it later. So again, remember, she was claiming that she was innocent, and she still had her innocence. NBSB is what they call it. So I was expecting to be her first. Upon doing it, it was extremely clear to me that she had significant experience. We were down low. We needed to elevate. I grabbed a pillow, and before I even moved it into position, she was lifting up her behind to allow me to put it under her. She had all the moves, hips, and you name it. She was clearly experienced. There was no evidence at all of innocence, I guess I'll say, just to keep it, clean here. And so the next day I confronted her, and I'm like, okay, so you've got these tattoos that you didn't tell me about, and it seems to me like you have experience. So she said, oh, the tattoos are just a surprise. I just got them 1 month ago. And so, of course, red flag, busted in a lie, because less than 2 weeks ago, she admitted that she had this one tattoo with my name and the other colored one above it. And she clearly should have told me, if she was honest, that she had others. So she didn't. And I asked her about, her experience in the bedroom. And she said I was absolutely her first. And maybe she's just natural at it because she danced a lot in high school. Red flags, red flags, red flags. Now, granted, she was extremely doting. She made food all the time. She kept clean. She acted like she cared about my well-being constantly, and covering up all these things, sweet, really attractive, and kind of distracting me from these things that were obviously raising my eyebrows. So the next thing that I observed about her behavior was she was very extremely jealous. We would go somewhere in town, and we lived in a very, very rural area, and they didn't even have taxis there. And I was one of the only foreigners, and at the time I was, really good shape, had nice physique, and so people wanted to talk to me. I was unusual, and so I was engaging and outgoing and very friendly, and it was fantastic. However, when we would return home after an outing like that, where people engaged me, she would go tempo, would freak out and tell me that I'm flirting with everybody that I see, and I'm disrespecting her. So I was not interested in anyone. She would get mad at like old ladies with no teeth talking to me and ask me where I'm from and things of that nature, and it was just completely and utterly ridiculous. So overreactive and jealous and quick to anger, and those were huge red flags. And again, she would do something wrong, but then afterwards she would try to make up for it by doing many things right and acting like, care, concern, cook fantastic food, always wanting to go to the bedroom 2-3 times a day. It was, seemingly every man's kind of dream scenario. However, there were many instances where she just lost self-control. We would go over to her family's house a lot. And by the way, her story about her family was completely fabricated. They were partiers, drinkers, karaoke every weekend, and there was no sense of conservatism at all. But she had painted this picture of these people being, incredibly godly types. And it was clear to me that their lifestyle did not match at all what she had relayed to me. So, red flag. Now, we are walking one night. I've been there a couple of months, been dealing with her jealousy. I was starting to call her a jealous monster, as a joke, and asswang, because when she would get mad, she would throw things on occasion. She would act just completely outlandish. But again, every time she did something, she would make up for it by doing incredibly great things and doting on me and wanting to go to the bedroom. So red flags. But the distractions were, like candy to a baby. So then I'd been there a couple of months. We're walking down the street and some guy pulls up on a motorcycle and kind of bumps my leg pretty hard. Didn't bruise, but I got a little scratch on my leg. And he's yelling at me in Tagalog, and he's very angry. I can't understand what he's saying. Long story short, they start arguing. Next thing I know, he's extending his hand out to me. I thought he was a police officer because he's wearing a badge on his chest and a uniform. Turned out he was a security guard, but I didn't know that at the time, and I thought she was taking care of the issue. I was thinking, oh no, this is one of those cop scams where he's going to want money or something, and I had no idea. But they were arguing, and they were very heated. I shook his hand. We walked away, and I said, what was that all about? And she told me that he was mad that I was in his way, and but she took care of it. So for some reason, the next morning, she decided to be revealing and truthful, and she told me that this was her ex-boyfriend. So after all the talk on the internet and all the chatter, suddenly she actually had a boyfriend. She said that they were never intimate at first, and then I baited her into it. I was like, if you just tell me the truth, I'm not going to get mad at you. So she told me in kind of broken way in English that, yeah, they were intimate, but it wasn't in detail. It was kind of confusing. So red flag, right? But I'm already there. After that happened, she was, like I said, she'd put on the charm, and she was real apologetic. And, I was in a new land. I was having, a good time. And she was a huge distraction to any of these things that had happened and the things that were revealed to me. And I just moved past them, but they stuck in my mind, and it was kind of starting to erode my trust significantly. I had very little trust, but I didn't leave. I stayed the course, and I know I'm a fool for that, and I should have left, but I didn't. So after the boyfriend thing, I was getting kind of fed up because she was extremely jealous. We had a few problems where she packed her bags and played this game where she wanted me to try to stop her. And I did the first couple of times, but then after that, I just let her go. And she would go to great lengths to try to get me to try to stop her. And I didn't. And she just kind of stopped doing that. But it was, nightmarish. So I got to the point where I was like, if she does one more thing after the boyfriend issue happened, she does one more thing, I'm going to split. I didn't really know where I was going to go, but I figured I could figure it out. So about a week and a half after that, she got extremely sick. I had to rush her to the hospital, and she ended up having an ectopic pregnancy. And it was very severe, and it turned out to be life-threatening. And she had to have surgery, and it was a pretty extensive surgery, and she lost her ability to have children. The aftercare, she was in the hospital for 1 week. The aftercare was she had to be in bed and not move around so the sutures and everything inside could kind of heal up. So she had to be bedridden for 3 weeks, and then the 4th week she could kind of do light things around the house. That was the doctor's recommendation. So throughout that, I took care of her. She was very upset mentally and talking about harming herself, and she didn't know why she would live anymore if she can't have kids. So I kind of counseled her through that thing, gave her sponge baths, doted on her, and I thought we had created a pretty big bond. That month was hard, but there was no real big red flags, of course. So the surgery was extremely expensive, and I had to pay out of pocket for it. And so, back then I didn't have equity in my property. I couldn't cash in my investments because I would have lost a lot of money on it. And I knew I needed to go and re-up some funds while I processed paperwork to get her out of the Philippines, do the K-1 visa. So Guam was nearby, and I flew over to Guam, and I got a job there. And I was sending her money back, but in Guam, the jobs are very low paying. And I had to pay for two households, my household and her household. So I would split the money, and in the end, I didn't really have much money to eat. So I arrived in Guam at 190 pounds, and I slowly lost all my muscle mass. And by the end of it, I only weighed 151 pounds. So, but she was important to me, I thought, and I thought we had bonded. When in hindsight, we didn't bond at all. So some red flags while I was in Guam. One time I logged into Facebook and I saw she had been tagged by a guy who was at a resort that was right around the corner from her family's place, and he was posing with extreme abs and everything else. There was a 2-hour time difference in Guam, and she wasn't online. So I had messaged her and said, "What's this going on? What is this all about?" So I guess she read the message before she contacted me. The post disappeared. And then when she contacted me, she said, "What are you doing? Are you just trying to break up with me? This didn't happen." And, you must be lying, or it was a glitch, and she doesn't know this person. So I had looked at the guy's page, and I knew his name and everything else. And suddenly his profile disappeared. So he blocked me. So why would he block me if out of the blue? Why would he block me out of the blue? It was extremely strange. So red flag, ignored. Now, granted, at this point, I had already paid the big bucks to file the paperwork with USCIS, and we were waiting on that paperwork to go through, get approved, so we could go and have an interview. So in the meantime, I stayed in Guam, worked. Now, again, while I was in Guam, she was sending me fun things, fancy pictures. She was a phenomenal singer. She would send me really amazing videos of karaoke, her doing karaoke, and distraction. So we went and did the interview, got approved, flew to the United States, and once we got to the United States, we were already married, and the red flags were still in my mind, but what could I do about them? I already moved past that, and we were married, and there was nothing we could do. So long story short, she started manifesting extreme taste for alcohol. And I don't drink alcohol, haven't drank alcohol since I was 20. 22, something like that, and never touched it again. But she would drink every day, and when she would get to a certain point, she'd become violent and nasty and completely unmanageable. So we went through the whole process. Once you're 90-day marriage, you don't get your green card immediately. You have to go through a process, and I needed to save up some money. It was only, I think, like $1,100, but when we got to the States, rentals had gone through the roof. We had to do, the first and last, and it was extremely expensive. We ended up spending like $4,000 just for that place. So rather than apply for the adjustment of status card, I was, trying to put food in our stomachs and a roof over our head. And so while we were gearing up to apply for the adjustment of status, her family at home was pecking at her, send us money, send us money, send us money. And her way of handling those things was to just freak out and get mad at me. And if I didn't dote on her for her terrible behavior, she would pack her bags and storm around town and put herself into dangerous situations and literally turning our lives upside down. So this is what happened to me just by ignoring the red flags. It gets a lot worse. Eventually, after we had a couple issues with the paperwork, and we got requests for further information 3 times. She was a tyrant. She was drunk. But see, at the same time, after one of her episodes, which were once, 2, 3 times a week, she would again do this doting thing where she would, be very affectionate. She would cook. She would clean. She would make leche flan and, all these phenomenal desserts and things and try to make up for her behavior. And it started to, I noticed, right away that it was just a tactic. But I didn't think that she was capable of doing what she ultimately did in the end. Which was completely ruined my life. So once she got her green card, we were living in a very, very small town at this time. And her job was outside of that town and required a 50-mile round trip taxi, which I became her taxi service to this place. So we did that for about 1.5 years. And in the meantime, she was looking to get a job closer in our town. We wouldn't have to commute. And finally, a job did come available, and it was good paying, and it was a nice position. So she took it, which meant she no longer needed me as a taxi. Ultimately, at this point, I was just a taxi. She stayed in a different room. She had like 7 cell phones that she was always playing with in there, and she would create the silliest of issues just to go storm off and stay in there. So during that last 1.5 years, I barely ever saw her except for her to be a tyrant and a drunk and do horrible things. And she was about to start her new position. She dropped me like a hot brick, kicked me out of the house, took everything that I had, family pictures from me as a little kid, all my clothing. All I had was the shirt on my back and my passport. She would not give me my dog, the cats, anything. So I was up the creek without a paddle, and I had to completely rebuild from ground zero. So that is a brief summary, leaving out so much chaos. So I had all these red flags before we were even married. I ignored them. Granted, she had some pretty phenomenal techniques to keep me distracted. But ultimately, once she got her green card and no longer needed me anymore, she dropped me like a hot brick. Now that it's all said and done, through the help of Lily, my new spouse, she's helped me work past the anger, reminding me that it's not appropriate to harbor hate and resentment, and that we're supposed to love our enemies and pray for them. So ultimately, that's what I did, and I moved past the hate. So in my heart, I truly hope that she um, moves past these immaturities and these terrible things in her nature, and that she doesn't do this to the next guy. But if she doesn't change and get right in her life, then that will never occur. But I wanted to make this video. I was hoping to make it shorter, so I don't know if this was too long-winded. Probably was. Probably nobody made it this far in it. But if you did, and you're hearing me right now, I want to implore upon you that if you're meeting somebody and you have any red flags like this, you should move on. And that's what I learned from it when I started talking to Lily. Was I was scrutinizing her hardcore. I was looking for signs and cues and things like that. When I met her in person, I was looking to see if her life truly matched the persona that she presented to me online. And fortunately, she was 100% who she portrayed herself to be. She's absolutely phenomenal. And I learned a lot from that first experience. And it benefited me in many, many ways. So hopefully, if you're watching this, you can glean something from this, and you can also learn, what to avoid. And my advice really is to get yourself situated here first. Don't, be too hasty. Observe, or a girl at a mall that has some longevity at the place, and you have observed her, and you know that she's responsible and has some kind of direction in her life, or someone who you observe in person. But if you're going that online route, don't set it in stone until you actually spend time with the person in person. Okay, so I know that a lot of people that watch this will probably say, "You're an idiot. I would have left long before that," and I agree with you. I should have left, but I didn't, and I was distracted by the positives of it, and I let a lot slip by, and I was too forgiving. And please, if you find yourself in a similar scenario, ride like the wind, bullseye, because more than likely it won't turn out in your favor, and it could really ruin your life like it did mine. But really, in the end, it didn't ruin my life. I met a phenomenal person. I got, some brand new teeth and a better job. I own property, and a lot of things really turned out in my favor from this, and I learned massive, massive lessons. So thanks for watching. I appreciate your time, and God bless.